When I first heard that there was going to be an Enola Holmes 3, I was quite surprised as I didn't feel like this was necessary, but I was curious and I went in with an open mind. Initially, I wasn't 100% sure if I was going to watch it straight away, but then it's Helena Bonham Carter, so I kind of can't resist. And honestly, I feel like the quality has dropped. It's not as creative, it's not as engaging. The story here I didn't think was very good, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. I won't give any spoilers or anything, but I will expand on that in a moment. Visually, it's still nice, the costumes are still absolutely stunning, the performances are very good. So, on its own, I guess it's not terrible, but I feel like three is too many, and certainly I think three is enough. This was released this year in 2026. It's directed by Philip Barantini. It's written by Jack Thorne with a cast including Millie Bobby Brown, Henry Cavill, Helena Bonham Carter, and various others. And I won't go into too much detail about the background of Enola Holmes. I'm going to assume that you're familiar with the character. If not, I will say do watch them in order. It is one film series where I do think watching them in order is pretty essential. You could probably watch this and briefly catch up with what's happening, but I feel like you need that journey with the character to get us to this point to even remotely enjoy this film. And that's kind of the only aspect that I did slightly enjoy, is just seeing where Enola is now, because she is a fantastic character. Millie Bobby Brown gives an amazing performance. That's no exception with this film. So spending more time with the character, I guess I was interested in. But the story itself, I didn't really care for. In fact, I don't have that much to say about it. Enola and Tewkesbury are getting married, but Sherlock isn't happy. He thinks that Enola should remain independent, which I thought was a pretty important topic to address. But of course, there's an investigation to explore, and I won't talk too much about that as I won't give anything away. And I guess the pacing of the narrative was fine. The key plot points made enough sense within the context of the film, but honestly, I found it to be quite boring. I did not care. I did not think the story itself was that interesting. There's nothing wrong with the structure, nothing wrong with the pacing. Everything's believable within the context of the film. I simply didn't care. Whereas with the previous two films, the narratives were fabulous. They were fantastic. They were engaging. They were exciting. They had a lot to offer. And I just wasn't feeling any of that here. And on top of that, as I said, it just doesn't feel quite as creative as the previous two films. The previous two films are very creative. They're very engaging because of that. And that just didn't seem to be the case here. Maybe it is somewhat creative still, and I just wasn't enjoying the story, so I wasn't as engaged with the creative elements. But I definitely don't think it offers a lot of the fun and excitement that the first two films do. The characters are absolutely fine. Enola is still a very strong character, and as I said, I was interested enough in her next chapter. I'm not that interested in a fourth story, though. That being said, if it exists, if it ever exists, I will probably watch it. We do have some good dialogue. Visually, it's great, which is the case with the previous two films as well. Lovely locations, great camera work, some good lighting, gorgeous costumes. Again, I don't think it's quite as creative as the previous two films. So I don't think it's quite as nice and engaging to look at, but the visual quality is definitely still there. Good music, good performances, a narrative that works, but that it really isn't interesting at all. The characters are strong. I cared about Enola, the other characters absolutely fine. HBC is always a delight. So it's not the same quality as the previous two films. And one might argue that third films in a trilogy are rarely the quality of the first two films, but it can happen. Sometimes the third film is even better. But that's not the case here. Do I recommend it? Yes, only if you really enjoyed the previous two films and if you care enough to spend more time with Enola Holmes. If you weren't that bothered about the previous two, I'd say maybe get round to it at some point, but it might not be worth prioritising because the quality compared with the previous two isn't there. If I were to judge this purely on its own, it's still a decent film, but I don't think it has that spark. There's nothing about it that would make me say, this is fabulous, this is unique, this is exciting, this is different. Whereas the first film, and generally speaking the second film, they both offer that kind of quality. So it's fine, it's not bad, I don't think it needed to exist. Having now watched it, I still kind of feel the same way. I don't mind that it exists. I don't think there's a need for a fourth film, but we'll see what happens there. But for now, I can say that Enola Holmes 3 is fine. If you enjoyed the previous two films, then it's probably worth watching.